Two spine-chilling, true supernatural encounters. Discovered terrifying haunted secrets exposed. Rachel's heart raced as she flipped the last switch off, plunging her home into an eerie silence. She had spent the week looking forward to this moment, an empty house stretching before her, a rare treat that came at the cost of her son Jack staying with relatives. The sunset cast a dim glow, the shadows expanding and swallowing corners where light dared not venture. Just as she lit a candle, a soft creak echoed through the hallway, raising the tiny hairs on the back of her neck. It felt like someone or something was watching. Over the next hour, the dread would clutch at her tighter. A coffee cup was missing from the counter, reappearing in the living room. The basement door that she swore she had locked was ajar. The warm embrace of solitude quickly morphed into a chilling sense of vulnerability. Then her phone buzzed, illuminating the darkness to reveal a new network, ominously labeled, "Get Out." Her breath caught in her throat as panic clawed at her. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can, leave a like. It really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every little sound became monstrous. The wind rattled the windows, whispering secrets only the night could understand. Rachel squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to remember she was just a mother, not a coward. Steeling her nerves against the unknown, she flicked on the TV to drown out the silence. But even the noise felt inadequate. She couldn't shake the whispers, soft and slithering through the rooms. The local lore of Maplewood tugged at her, the tales of the Watcher, a figure said to prey on those alone in the shadows. As she fought to dismiss the legends, a pit formed in her stomach. Her neighbors, always friendly, seemed to share a knowing glance at her expense, eyes filled with secrets. A sudden knock jolted her upright. The only comfort she'd hoped for shattered as she swung open the door to find Jack standing there, fidgeting, eyes wide. Her instincts shifted instantly. This wasn't her quiet night anymore. The shadows that had once felt lonely now threatened the innocence of her boy. Wrapping her arms around Jack, she decided to flee the oppressive atmosphere of their home. They found themselves at the abandoned Maplewood High. Its broken windows loomed like sinister eyes, watching them from the darkness. The air felt heavy, saturated with the scent of decay and lost dreams. Inside, echoes of laughter twisted into a sinister mockery, looping through the remnants of classrooms. Room after room whispered secrets broken and buried, rumors of children who had vanished, their stories deformed by time. As they ventured deeper, the walls constricted around them like an unwanted embrace. A shadow flickered against the wall. A figure shrouded in darkness rustled just out of sight. Rachel's heart raced. Had they walked into the lair of the Watcher? A demon cloaked in community shame? The echo of her son's name slid through the silence like a knife, chilling her blood. She could feel the lurking truth deep within the unsettling environment. Their hometown's glossy covers concealed something far more terrifying than any tale whispered by the neighbors. With dread coursing through her veins, Rachel tightened her grip on Jack's hand, the air heavy with the reality that some nightmares are not just stories meant to scare. As they stood in stagnant air, the flickering lights illuminated the truth for an instant, just long enough to see the remnants of what had been lost, a deep-seated terror that dared to resurface. Would they uncover the darkness or fall prey to it? The air thickened around them, wrapping itself in a cold grip that seeped into their bones. Rachel felt Jack shiver beside her. A pit formed in her stomach as the haunting echoes filled the empty hallways with a twisted sense of nostalgia. She had spent hours in this school as a child, unaware of the lingering shadows that had now resurfaced. The memories twisted cruelly, just like the tales of children who vanished without a trace. "Mom, I don't like it here." Jack's voice was a fragile whisper, barely audible over the deafening silence that enveloped them. The vulnerability in his tone sliced through her hardened resolve. She glanced at him, noticing how illuminated he was by the flickering light. He looked almost spectral. "Just a little longer, honey," Rachel managed to say, her own voice trembling. She scanned the darkness, forcing herself to be brave, to protect him. As they moved deeper into the labyrinth of decaying rooms, the smell of mildew and something else, something rotten, made her stomach churn. Jack's hand squeezed hers tighter, and her own pulse quickened at the feeling of something not quite right lurking behind them. "Did you hear that?" Jack's eyes widened, darting back to the shadowy corridor they had just come from. Rachel could feel it. Something or someone was following them. Every step echoed ominously, a rhythmic taunt that matched her heartbeats. The shadows seemed to flicker and dance, teasing the periphery of her vision. "It's just the wind, buddy," she lied, forcing a smile she didn't feel. They crept past the classroom door that hung on its hinges, slapping lightly against the frame, whispering secrets of despair. She pushed past, urgency clawing at her insides. They needed to get out. Suddenly, what sounded like a child's laughter echoed, bouncing off the cracked walls, sending icy needles down her spine. It was too disembodied, too wrong. Rachel turned sharply, scanning the space around them, convinced they were not alone. "There's no one here," she said, though even she felt the hollowness in her words. "No, I saw someone." Jack's voice quivered. "There was a girl." His eyes were vast pools of blue, reflecting panic. Rachel felt her breath hitch as adrenaline coursed through her. If Jack saw something, it was only a matter of time before whatever haunted these halls would reveal itself. "Let's go, Jack, now!" Rachel hurriedly pulled her son toward the exit, but there was a suffocating weight against her back, a dark presence that halted her movements. A disorienting whisper curled around her ears, making her freeze in terror. "Stay, play." Jack tugged at her hand, desperation in his voice. "Mom, please." Suddenly, a rustling erupted from behind them. Rachel spun around, eyes wild. The shadow shifted, creeping closer as if it were alive. She could barely make out a shape materializing from the darkness. The air pulsed with raw dread, and her instincts screamed to run. They needed to get out, but the path had shifted. What once an exit now appeared to be a swirling vortex of torment. With fear thrumming in her chest, Rachel gripped Jack's hand tighter and charged forward, not knowing if the unfolding chaos would let them escape. As they bolted for the door, a cold force wrapped around her ankle, yanking her back. The ceiling lights blinked frantically, illuminating a glimpse of the dark figure stalking them at the edge of the hallway, a presence twisted into something evil and primal. "Mom, help!" Jack screamed, and Rachel's heart split in two. In that moment, Rachel knew that a fight was brewing. They were not just trapped in a school, they were deep within Maplewood's tragic history, and the truth was clawing its way back for them. What waited in the shadows, hidden from the light of day? As they fought against the grip of dread, a ghostly laugh swirled in the air, mocking their every attempt to escape. And then, silence. Time stretched as Rachel felt the grip around her ankle tighten, a cold and clammy force clawing at her, pulling her down. She struggled, panic surging through her like wildfire. Jack's terrified screams echoed in the hollow hall, amplifying her fear to a scream of her own. "Jack, run!" she yelled, her voice breaking, desperation bubbling up from her core. Dragging on instinct, she kicked at the shadow, feeling an icy rush slither up her leg as the darkness recoiled from her movement. But it wasn't enough. The darkness recoiled, then surged forward, a wave of shadowy malice. With all her strength, Rachel yanked her foot free, stumbling backward as she snatched Jack into her arms. Fear radiated off him, his small body trembling against hers.
She pivoted, darting down the hallway, where the dim lights flickered erratically, casting long, stretched shadows that twisted grotesquely against the walls. "Where do we go?" Jack cried, darting his eyes to the shifting visions of despair surrounding them. "Just keep running. I'll find a way out." Rachel pressed on, pushing through the thick, choking air that felt alive, vibrating with an otherworldly energy. They needed to get away, away from whatever hunted them. They reached another doorway, this one ornate yet ominous, the wood splintering under years of decay. Rachel shoved it open, and the old hinges creaked a haunting protest as they slipped into the room. Inside the classroom, dolls lined rows of dilapidated desks, their glassy eyes staring blankly ahead as if waiting for their lessons still. She shivered, bile rising in her throat at the sight. Jack clutched her waist tightly, his breath rapid and shallow. "Mom, why are there dolls?" he whispered. And she wanted to reassure him, to laugh it off as nothing but old toys, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were all too present. Rachel scanned the walls and saw a mural. It depicted children laughing, playing, but the colors were muted, darkened with age. Their smiles felt wrong, twisted. It hit her then, the tales of the missing children, the stories swallowed by time. Had they all come here once? Suddenly, a giggle broke through the suffocating silence. It echoed, harmonizing with the sound of scratching at the door. Rachel's heart plummeted. The sound was so wrong, a sinister lilt that set her teeth on edge. "Mom, I don't like this," Jack pleaded, backing away. "Stay close," she hissed, moving to the door, her heart racing. They couldn't stay. They couldn't. The doorknob rattled violently, and Rachel felt a new wave of terror wash over her. She pressed against it, the ancient wood thrumming beneath her palms as the laughter burst forth again, cheerful and mocking. "Let's play," it sang, lilting through the air. That voice wasn't just a child's, it was something dark and desperate. "No, we need to leave," Rachel shouted into the door, but her voice trembled with fear. She could feel heat prickle at the back of her neck, an awareness of eyes burning into her, watching, waiting for their next move. The doorknob twisted violently, and she could feel a new wave of terror wash over her. She pressed against it, the ancient wood thrumming beneath her palms as the laughter burst forth again, cheerful and mocking. "Let's play," it sang, lilting through the air. That voice wasn't just a child's, it was something dark and desperate. "No, we need to leave," Rachel shouted into the door, but her voice trembled with fear. She could feel heat prickle at the back of her neck, an awareness of eyes burning into her, watching, waiting for their next move. The doorknob twisted violently, and she could feel the air shifting. Something was pressing against it, something that didn't belong to this world. In her gut, she knew whatever was coming was more than just a lingering presence. It was hungry. "Mom!" Jack cried again, and she turned to see his face blanched, terror etched in features as he pointed behind her. Rachel spun, adrenaline sharpening her senses. What she saw froze the blood in her veins. The dolls were moving, their heads tilting with sickening precision as they all stared at her, eyes filled with something sinister, something alive. Rachel felt the walls closing in. She had to make a choice. Another way out, or risk facing the dark tide that threatened to consume them. "Let's go," she shouted, a last attempt to break the suffocating grip of despair. They bolted for the windows, fingers fumbling over the framework. But as she pushed against the glass, she felt it resist, a solid wall keeping them trapped. And then came the laughter, louder now, a chorus of joy, playful yet diabolical. "Play with us," it beckoned. The shadows twisted further, vibrating with excitement, energy pulsing as the dolls began to shuffle toward her, each step sending cold shivers down her spine. Rachel knew that if they didn't find a way out now, they might never escape the nightmarish grip of whatever had claimed this place.
Just then, the window splintered, and she spotted a fleeting figure in the outside world, a girl with long dark hair, her face obscured by the fading light. She beckoned with a crooked finger. "Come play," and Rachel's heart hammered in disbelief. "Jack!" she cried, but as she turned back, the dolls were faster, reaching for them with thin, outstretched arms. Rachel's breath quickened. The next move would define everything. Would they step into the darkness or follow the fading figure into the unknown? Rachel slammed her palms against the window, desperation clawing at her throat. The shards of glass crumbled under pressure, but the frame held firm. She could hear the rustle of the dolls getting closer, the fetid scent of aged, rotting fabric filling the room as they advanced, mechanism-like in their intent. "No, stay back," she shouted, stepping back and pulling Jack closer. The boy's small body trembled against her side, his wide eyes filled with pure terror. The girl outside coaxed again, her finger moving like a pendulum, mesmerizing Rachel. But that was no safety. It was a trap, another part of the puppeteer's cruel game. "Mom, what do we do?" Jack whimpered, the heat of fear radiating from him. Rachel could feel her heart thundering in response, so loud it drowned out the sinister laughter that echoed around them. "Just keep holding on to me," she whispered, her voice steadying as panic coiled tightly in her stomach. She refused to show Jack her true fear. They could not be lost to the fold, not here. Suddenly, she spotted a door at the far end of the classroom, half hidden by the dolls. The thought of escaping flared hope in her chest like a match struck against the dark. She turned toward it, determination rising. "Hold tight." She bolted for the door, her feet pounding against the creaking floor as the whispers of the dolls reached her ears. "Stay, play, come." The phrases twisted into something inescapable, taunting and snaring her. Rachel pushed through the fog of noise, focusing on the doorknob, her fingers grasping it just as a cold shadow lunged for them. Jack screamed, pierced through the clamor, sharp and filled with unbridled dread. Rachel twisted the knob, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The door creaked open, but it felt like everything was conspiring to keep them there. The moment she stepped over the threshold, a rush of wind pulled Jack and her further into the hallway beyond. It was darker here, even more oppressive, but she could sense they were in a different place, stretching out into the unknown. The laughter faded slightly, but the thrill of it lingered, hauntingly echoing down the corridor. The air was thick with an unnatural chill that sent shivers down her spine. "Mom!" Jack gasped, pointing down the hallway. There it was, the shadowy figure of a child hovering just out of reach, beckoning farther down the darkened hall. Heart racing, Rachel took a deep breath. There was no telling what awaited them, but they had to go somewhere. They had to find an answer, escape whatever darkness lingered behind. "What do you see, Jack?" she insisted, her voice trembling. "It's her," he whispered, eyes wide. "The girl, she's calling for us." Something twisted in Rachel's gut. Could this be a way out, or just another deception cloaked in innocence? "Stay close," she warned, moving forward cautiously. The shadows elongated as she passed under flickering lights. Walls that once felt ominous now seemed to close in, tightening their hold on her psyche. "Come play," the voice echoed, playful yet edged with something sinister. Jack pulled at her sleeve, his breath hitching. "I don't want to go. What if she's like the other ones?" Rachel halted, uncertainty clawing at her. The dolls were behind them. She could almost feel their cold, clammy hands reaching. "We can't go back. We have to see where this leads. Just trust me." The girl stepped into view fully, her face now clearer, but still shrouded in shadows. A smirk danced across her lips, innocent yet twisted, a stark contrast to the darkness that loomed. Could she believe this apparition was a savior or yet another grotesque trick? "Come play with me," the girl sang again, her voice sweet as candy but rotting beneath the surface. As they approached, Rachel felt the heat of panic setting in.
The hallway stretched endlessly in front of them. Was it a trap? They were so close, yet the dread consumed every rational thought. "Jack, stay behind me," Rachel murmured, every instinct screaming at her to turn and run. Then, with every ounce of courage within her, she took a step toward the shadowy girl. Just as Rachel reached into the beckoning void of the unknown, a low growl rippled through the air, shaking the very essence of the hallway, and she felt the darkness close in around them like a vice grip. Playtime is just beginning. Rachel's heart sank. This was only the beginning, and they were far deeper in danger than she imagined. Would they become part of the game, or could she thwart the darkness before it consumed them? Something brushed against her arm, a cold touch unlike anything she'd felt before. Straining against fear, she turned back to Jack, only to see the shadows darting closer, fingers slipping through the fabric of the night. What lay ahead was a gamble against time, a race against a malignant force hell-bent on consuming them. "Mom!" Jack cried as the laughter increased around them.
Them, drowning out everything else. And Rachel knew, for them to survive, they would have to face the truth of what this cursed place had waiting. Rachel's breath came in shallow gasps, her heart pounding like a war drum. The darkness thickened, pressing in around them, saturating the air with an ancient malice. She could hear Jack's quiet whimpers, his palms slick with sweat against hers. They couldn't stop now. Turning back meant surrendering to the unknown horrors they had just escaped. "Mom, please." Jack's voice wavered as he tugged on her sleeve, his wide eyes glistening with tears. "Just a little further," Rachel urged, voice barely above a whisper. The girl ahead of them lingered, her form flickering like a candle's flame caught in a wind. The child was waiting, laughter bubbling up from the depths of the shadows. It felt like it was pulling Rachel into the abyss, a call to embrace whatever lay beyond. As they neared, the girl's features sharpened, a hollow stare with an unsettling grin that split her face. "Come on, we can play forever." Rachel hesitated, dread curling around her heart. Was this really the way to safety, or just another layer of the trap? All of a sudden, from behind her, echoed the unmistakable sound of doll laughter, sharp and mocking, sending chills racing down her spine. "It's playtime!" they chorused in unison, creeping closer, as if they were carrying the weight of their fate on their string-pulling hands. "Jack, no!" Rachel thrust herself forward, standing firm between her son and the encroaching threat. The flickering lights threw ghostly shadows on the wall, twisting and writhing in grotesque dances. With desperate resolve, she turned her gaze back to the girl who remained unflinching, her presence an unholy magnet amidst the chaos. "Why are you doing this?" Rachel yelled, her voice cracking. "What do you want from us?" The girl tilted her head, her grin widening, exposing a mouth that seemed far too large and filled with too many teeth. "I want to play, but only if you're brave enough." "Mom," Jack called, fear etching deeper lines into his small face. "I don't like this game." Rachel's heart twisted in her chest. Was it just a game, or was something darker underneath? She desperately searched her surroundings, seeking anything that might help them escape. Dim flickers in the distance hinted at more doors, but it felt like they were drifting further into a labyrinth without escape. "Okay," Rachel finally shouted, drawing closer to the girl, hoping to regain control. "We'll play, just let us go." The girl's laughter erupted, a chilling sound that sent shivers up Rachel's spine. "You have to play my game first, then you can leave." In an instant, the air grew cold, pressing down like an invisible weight. Shadows lurched forward, swirling around Rachel and Jack, thick tendrils snaking toward them, trying to wrap them in their dark embrace. The laughter echoed louder, now a cacophony of sinister giggles that filled her "Jack, we have to move!" Rachel shouted, yanking him close as she backed away from the shadows that writhed towards them, the walls seeming to pulse with deep-seated hunger. She turned, scanning for an escape route, desperately trying to forget the girl's taunting voice. "Pick a door, Mommy! We have to go!" Jack pointed, his small finger trembling. Rachel caught sight of two doors at the end of the hallway. One seemed to pulsate with light, promising safety and warmth. The other, cloaked in overwhelming darkness, beckoned foreboding and unknown terrors. Not knowing which choice could lead to salvation or doom, Rachel's instinct screamed at her to flee. "Which one?" She looked down at Jack, pain in her heart as confusion flickered across his face. "Mom," Jack whimpered, voice breaking, "I don't want to play at all." The girl leaned forward, her face now inches from Rachel's, eyes wide with manic glee. "You have to decide! Time's running out!" The oppressive tension choked the air, every second feeling like an eternity. She glanced at Jack, feeling the weight of her choice settle around them like a noose. In that moment, they had to trust their instincts. With a final glance at the girl, her face now twisted into a mask of rage, Rachel snatched Jack's hand, her finger jabbing toward the well-lit door, a beacon amid the suffocating darkness. "That one!" They sprinted toward it. But as they dashed, the growls grew louder and darker, blending with the laughter into a symphony of dread. The other door slammed shut behind them, their path nowhere to retreat. Would they find the way out, or would their fate entwine with the shadows forever? Behind them, the girl's laughter echoed, a promise of darker games to come. "Will you play with us now?" she sang, and something deep in Rachel's bones whispered that they had just crossed into a threshold where escape could be a distant dream. The shadows clawed ever closer. Would they become part of the puppeteer's cruel collection, or could they challenge the darkness that sought to claim them? They burst through the illuminated door, hearts thrumming, but the warmth they sought did not embrace them. An eerie stillness wrapped around them like a shroud. Rachel's eyes darted around, taking in the walls painted with relentless gray, tiles gleaming under a harsh, artificial light. There were no cheerful decorations, no signs of life. Just a narrow corridor leading deeper into another hollow space. "Where are we?" Jack whispered, his voice trembling. Rachel held him close, her heart hammering. "I don't know. Just stay close to me." Ahead, the corridor twisted sharply, and she hesitated, absorbing the silence that pressed down like a physical weight. It was too quiet. Her instincts screamed for action, but fear held her frozen for a moment longer. Then, as if in response to her thoughts, a scratching sound echoed from behind them. The door they had just entered slammed shut, sealing them off. A chill coursed through Rachel as she glanced back. She turned, pushing the murmuring dread aside, forcing herself to take a step forward. Jack clung to her side, his small body trembling. "Mom," he said, and she could hear the panic swelling in his voice. "It'll be okay, Jack. We're safe here," she lied. It sounded hollow even to her. They moved deeper into the corridor, the lights flickering ominously above. Shadows flitted at the edges of her vision, darting just out of reach. It felt alive, the space surrounding them pulsing with anticipation. A distant echo of that haunting laughter slithered through the air, raising goosebumps along her arms. "Keep moving," Rachel urged, gripping Jack's hand tighter. If the shadows wanted them, she wouldn't let them go without a fight. The corridor twisted again, opening into what appeared to be a large room. The fluorescent lights buzzed irritably, illuminating the walls lined with cracked mirrors. Each reflection showed not only their own weary faces twisted with fear, but bizarre, fleeting images. Ghostly figures, distorted smiles, and eyes that seemed to follow their every move. Rachel gasped, clutching Jack to her. "Don't look in the mirrors, Jack!" But his gaze was already caught. As he stepped forward, the reflections rippled, and a ghostly hand reached through the glass like it was liquid.
A finger beckoned him closer. "Mom, look!" Jack cried, enthralled. "No!" Rachel shouted, yanking him back just as the hand withdrew, leaving smudged evidence of its lingering touch. The mirrors began to shimmer violently, like water disturbed by a stone. The laughter, once a soft haunting, escalated into a cacophony of shrieks. Rachel ran, dragging Jack with her, her heart pounding fiercely. Panic raced through her veins. All around her, the room shifted, the walls closing in, mirrors multiplying, reflecting not just their terror, but feeding it back to them tenfold. "Where do we go?" Jack cried, his voice small against the growing chaos. "Find an exit. We can't stay here." Another mirror shattered behind them, glass cascading to the ground, shards sparkling like deadly stars. Rachel's breath quickened as she spotted a door on the far side, half hidden behind a flickering light. "Over there!" she shouted, thrusting her body forward, her legs carrying them across the room like a desperate storm. The cackling echoed behind her, shadows lengthening, reaching, as if trying to pull them back. Jack stumbled, nearly falling, but Rachel caught him. "Run, Jack! Don't look back!" They reached the door just as the laughter crescendoed, a manic uproar that hammered against her ears. Rachel flung the door open, desperation fueling her movement. But what lay beyond made her stomach drop. Another corridor, stretching into darkness, thick with heaviness and uncertainty. As they stepped through, Rachel felt the sting of a cold breeze wrap around them like a vice. Hands, pale and ghostly, seemed to brush against her skin, pulling, urging them deeper into the creeping abyss. "Are we safe?" Jack whimpered, his tiny fingers now slipping from her grasp. A whisper danced on the wind, muffled yet piercing. "Playtime is just beginning." Before Rachel could respond, shadows engulfed them. The door slammed shut behind them, shutting off their escape, and she realized with dawning horror that the game had only just begun. Could they outrun the nightmares that lay in wait, or would they be trapped in a cycle of terror, forever forced to play with the thing that haunted their very souls? The darkness felt alive, wrapping around Rachel and Jack like a suffocating blanket. With the door now sealed behind them, the unknown corridor loomed ahead, shrouded in shadows that seemed to breathe. Flickering lights sporadically exposed the walls, revealing peeling paint and small damp spots. Each step echoed like a funeral march in her ears. "Mom, I'm scared." Jack's voice trembled, breaking the oppressive stillness. "Me too," Rachel admitted, trying to sound brave. She guided him forward, her breath catching in her throat at the unsettling silence. They pushed deeper, the air thick with dread. With every step, Rachel felt eyes upon them, invisible yet unyielding. They turned a corner, and the corridor opened up into an expansive, cavernous space. It took a moment for her eyes to adjust, but when they did, her heart dropped into her stomach. This was no ordinary room. It resembled a twisted funhouse, illuminated by dim, flickering lights. Laughter echoed again, nonsensical and hollow, coming from somewhere unseen. It seemed to bounce off the walls, repeating like a cruel taunt. "Jack, stay close," she whispered. But as she looked down, he was already wandering away, entranced by the strange sights. "Look, Mom!" Jack pointed toward a bizarre carousel, spinning slowly in the center of the room. But instead of cheerful animals, eerie figures with twisted smiles and hollow eyes circled the platform. They looked human, yet weren't. Shadows of joy turned malignant. "Jack, no!" Rachel lunged toward him as he took a step closer. It was an instinct born of fear and desperate urgency. Something was terribly wrong. Just as Jack began to reach for one of the figures, a loud grinding sound filled the air. The carousel ground to a sudden halt, and the laughter morphed into a sinister chorus. Rachel felt the very foundations of the room shudder. It felt as though the walls were alive, shifting and constricting around them. "Run!" she screamed, dragging Jack back as the figures twisted their heads toward them, frozen grins spreading unnaturally wide. They sprinted down another corridor, the walls pressing in like a vice. In her frantic mind, Rachel grasped at the surreal nature of their escape. With each passing moment, the images the mirrors had shown her began to fracture in her mind. What if the reflections weren't just mere echoes of fear, but part of the darkness that had claimed this place? Suddenly, the lights flickered off, plunging them into suffocating blackness. Rachel's heart raced. Here in the dark, her sanctuary vanished. Panic surged. She felt Jack tremble beside her. "Jack, hold!" "My hand!" she shouted, barely able to keep her voice steady. She squeezed his fingers tightly, trying to anchor them both within the chaos. But then whispers assailed them from every direction, chilling and intimate, like long-forgotten secrets spoken just behind their ears. "Join us! Join us!" The words curdled her blood. "Mom, I can't see!" Jack's voice cracked with fright. "Just keep holding on," Rachel cried, feeling her resolve shatter like glass. The darkness felt palpable, the whispers intensifying. Frantic steps echoed in the void, a stampede of relentless footsteps coming closer. She had to find an exit. Another flicker of light burst forth, illuminating a doorway straight ahead. Without hesitation, Rachel darted toward it, pulling Jack along. They dove through just as a freezing gust swept past them, and for a brief moment she believed they had escaped the clutches of whatever hunted them. But as she turned to catch her breath, the new room revealed a haunting glow. The walls pulsated like a heartbeat, adorned with strange symbols she couldn't comprehend. In the center, a circular mirror stood, larger than all the others, its reflective surface swirling with ominous colors. Jack stepped closer, captivated again, his eyes wide and unblinking. "Jack, don't!" Rachel's scream rang out, but he was entranced, as if caught in a trance. "Mom, it's beautiful." "No, get away from it!" Her voice sounded desperate, shrill, filled with fear. The mirror rippled, and dark tendrils began to reach out, snaking through the air, seeking them both. Rachel grabbed Jack, but it felt as if something was pulling him away, suctioning him toward the terrifying reflection. With a surge of adrenaline, she lunged forward, forcing herself between Jack and the mirror. "You won't take him!" she screamed, the resolve igniting a flicker of bravery even amid the dread. But the mirror glowed brighter, the laughter tampering off into a sharp silence. "Playtime," the voice echoed, deep and chilling, as shadows swarmed around them. She realized with horror that they were not the first, and perhaps not the last, to be drawn into this game. As the darkness closed in, overpowering her scream, Rachel's mind raced with a single thought. What was waiting for them on the other side? What had they awakened? And then the shadows engulfed them. Somewhere in the depths, they knew they would find out. The shadows pressed in tight, wrapping around Rachel and Jack as if the darkness had teeth. It felt like a vice, cruelly tightening with each heartbeat. Panting, Rachel fought against the oppressive weight in the air. She gripped Jack's hand hard enough that it stung. He didn't flinch. His body felt oddly weightless, drawn slowly toward the whispering void. "Jack, Rachel started, but the sinister glow of the mirror splintered her speech.
Wisps of shadow danced along its surface, coiling like smoke. The laughter had returned, haggard and throaty, echoing from somewhere deep within the glass. "Join us. Play," it chirped, the words crawling under her skin. She wanted
To crawl away, but there was nowhere to run. "Mom, it's still beautiful." Jack's voice was hypnotic, his eyes fixed on the mirror as if it were a portal to a heaven of wonders. His small body leaned closer, as if he were the moth drawn to a flame. "No, Jack, look away!" she screamed, but terror clawed at her throat. She could feel the mirror's call, a dreadful allure that sought to pull them in. Desperation ignited in her chest. "Jack, please!" He blinked, momentarily breaking free from the spell. "Mom, let's get out of here." In one swift motion, Rachel yanked him back, their feet stumbling as they broke the magnetic pole of the mirror. But as they turned, the shadows surged forth, swirling like a dark storm. The room itself seemed to twist around them, the walls breathing in sync with the darkness. Symbols on the walls glimmered, glowing faintly as if alerting something or someone of their presence. "Mom, what are those?" Jack asked, pointing quizzically as they retreated toward the wall. Rachel squinted, her heart pounding. "I don't know, but it's not good." Suddenly, shadows peeled away from the wall, taking form. They lurked just at the edges of the dim light, twisted figures, their laughter a terrible symphony, punctuated by hollow, vacant eyes. "Look!" Jack cried, awakening an instinct within her. These weren't just shadows, they were faces, distorted, elongated, each with a wide, mocking smile that flashed cruelly in the light. Rachel felt a chill wrap around her organs, almost squeezing the breath from her lungs. "Run," she hissed, scooping Jack into her arms and sprinting down the corridor, heart racing, fueled by pure adrenaline. The cacophony of whispers grew louder, urging them to stop, to submit. "Stay with me, don't look back." They darted into another room, breathless and wild. Rachel's eyes darted, searching for a way out. Anxiety flooded her veins. This space felt more alive than any they had encountered, walls pulsating, surging with energy. The symbols glowed, shifting and writhing as if alive, or waiting. Then a figure darted into view, a shadow stitched into the fabric of the walls. It was different from the others, taller, humanoid, and looming. Its mouth stretched beyond reality, revealing glimmering teeth. "Join us," it hissed, voice sinuous like tendrils slipping through the crack of a door. "No!" Rachel shouted, heart pounding against her ribs. But her voice trembled, and doubt seeped through her resolve. What if she was too late? What if they were destined to join the horrors around them? Suddenly, the symbols on the walls flared brighter, casting strong light in all directions. The taller figure flinched, retreating slightly. It seemed weakened, but something deep in Rachel's gut told her it was only a momentary reprieve. "Jack, we have to find a way out." They stumbled backward, nearly crashing into a small staircase that spiraled deeper into the earth. It beckoned them, foreboding yet promising escape. "Go?" Jack said, looking up at her, uncertainty etched on his young face. "Yes, we have to go before—" Before she could finish, the shadows behind them surged forward, as if anticipating their choice. The whispers turned frantic, melding into a horrifying crescendo of sound that filled Rachel's mind with panic. With no time to think, Rachel made the decision. "We have to jump!" Grabbing Jack, she propelled them down the staircase, not looking back. The darkness consumed them again, but this time the air felt different, thick with expectation, alive with the promise of the unknown. "Mom!" Jack's voice echoed, but nothing appeared to hold his query. Only the shadow of something far more sinister descended behind them. What awaited them below? A new horror, or perhaps a way to escape this nightmare? The shadows chased them, relentless, whispering truths she wasn't ready to hear. Rachel's heart raced as they plunged deeper, the world above fading fast, hope flickering like a candle, ready to be snuffed out. but she would not let it. In the dark, she whispered a promise to herself as they dropped into the abyss, feeling the shadows creep closer with each passing moment. What new terror lurked in the depths? Was this truly the way out, or was it merely another trap they stumbled into? The winding staircase spiraled into an all-consuming dark as Rachel held Jack tightly, his small body trembling against her. She could hear the shadows behind them, their frantic whispers becoming a frenzied chant, desperate and eager. "Join us, join us," they echoed in the depths of her mind, sending shivers racing down her spine. They landed hard at the bottom of the staircase, falling into an expansive yet claustrophobic chamber. The air was thick with an unnatural chill that seemed to settle into their bones. Rachel quickly scanned the area, her heart pounding. The walls were smooth stone, ancient and slick with a cold, damp moisture. It felt almost alive, like it might shift and breathe any moment. "Where are we?" Jack's voice trembled, eyes wide and searching. Rachel didn't know. She wished she did. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we can't stay here. We need to keep moving." As they cautiously stepped forward, the chamber stretched wider than she could have imagined, shadows inching closer from the walls, reaching out like gnarled fingers. In the dim light, she began to make out shapes. A collection of ornate mirrors, like the one they had fled, lining the stone walls. But these mirrors were different, contorted and warped, reflecting not just their figures, but something darker, something ancient. "Look at them, Mom," Jack murmured, entranced. His small hand pointed to one of the mirrors, its surface swirling with colors that twisted into grotesque faces, laughter knotting in Rachel's throat. "Don't look, Jack." She jerked his hand away from the mirror's surface. "We have to find a different way." The whispers grew louder as they edged further into the room, the shadows pooling thicker and darker near the mirrors. Rachel's pulse quickened. She could sense something stirring beside her, creeping closer. "Mom?" Jack's voice became a faint plea. She turned, ready to pull him away, but the shadows morphed, coalescing into a figure emerging from the blackness. It was one of the elongated faces, stretching from the mirror, now part of the room itself. A laugh erupted, chilling and rasping, breathing life into the horrors surrounding them. "Stay with us, little boy," it crooned, a voice like crushed gravel dragging through the air. Its smile widened, too wide for a face, revealing rows of teeth that glimmered like sharp shards of glass. "Run!" Rachel screamed, the urgency shattering the hypnotic hold the figure had on Jack. She grabbed his hand and yanked him hard, their feet pounding against the cold stone floor as they raced toward a simple archway hidden in the far corner. But as they reached it, tension snapped. The shadows surged forward, swirling around them, cutting off escape. Rachel squeezed Jack's hand tightly, panic igniting her chest as she turned back to the mirrors lined against the walls. An impulse struck her, an idea formed through sheer desperation. "Jack, listen!" she shouted over the cacophony of laughter and whispers. "We have to break the mirrors. It's the only way to fight them." The boy's eyes widened. "But Mom, what if we—" "Trust me." The words came out raw. She couldn't think, couldn't doubt. Scooping a jagged shard from the ground, she turned to the nearest mirror. "On three. 1, 2, 3. With all her strength, she crashed the shard against the glass. It shattered, splintering the illusion. A shriek tore through the air as light burst from the broken glass, illuminating the darkness for a moment. But the shadows shrank back only momentarily, and the laughter became a furious roar. "Quick, another one!" she urged Jack. Together, they lunged for the next mirror, heart pounding, every second bringing more terror. Each piece they broke revealed glimpses of a nightmarish realm beyond, faces of those they couldn't recognize, twisting in darkness and despair. "What if they come through?" Jack asked, fear gripping his voice. "They can't, not if we keep breaking them." As they shattered mirrors, the room began to tremble, the walls quaked, and the shadows recoiled. But a deeper presence stirred, the thrummed air vibrating as if something older, something dangerous was awakening through the chaos. "Just a few more, Jack. We can do this." Rachel's voice was filled with fierce determination, but doubt gnawed at her. Was this really their salvation? Suddenly, the ground buckled beneath them as they broke the last mirror. The light burst brightly, blinding, drowning the laughter in a deafening silence. And then, everything went dark. What awaited them once the darkness faded? Would they find themselves in safety, or hand in hand with the dark horrors that conspired against them? The echoes of their shattered reality clawed at Rachel's thoughts, and she could only hope their choice hadn't sealed their fate forever. A deafening
silence wrapped around Rachel and Jack, the kind that felt like a heavy blanket stifling everything beneath it. Heart racing, Rachel blinked against the brightness that sliced through the darkness, attempting to make sense of where they'd landed. The air was crisp and cool, the stench of fear fading, replaced by something fresh and alive. As the light settled, they found themselves on the other side of the last mirror, standing in a field. Lush grass spread beneath their feet, dotted with wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. Above, a bright sun hung proudly in a cerulean sky, free of clouds or dread. "Mom, are we safe?" Jack asked, his voice small, wavering between hope and uncertainty. Rachel knelt to meet his gaze, brushing the hair from his forehead. I think we are." Tears prickled her eyes. They had escaped, yet the remnants of fear still clutched at her heart. But even as they tried to breathe in this newfound freedom, echoes of the past taunted them. Laughter, not of joy, but of bitterness, flitted through the edges of her mind, shadows dancing just beyond the periphery of her thoughts. "Look," Jack called, pointing ahead. A path wound through the field, leading toward a hill in the distance. At the top stood an old wooden swing, creaking gently in the breeze. It looked inviting, yet it stirred unease, memories of the darkness lingering at the edge of their minds. "Shall we?" Rachel asked, voice steadying, imagining a world where the shadows could no longer haunt them. "Yeah," Jack's excitement was pure, infectious. Hand in hand, they stepped onto the path, the green grass a welcoming carpet beneath their feet. As they climbed the hill, the sunlight kissed their skin, warming away the chill that clung to them from the chamber they had escaped. Each step to the swing felt lighter, the memories of terror fading behind them. Rachel glanced back, half expecting to see shadows lurking, but the only thing behind them was the vast expanse of grass, free of remnants from their harrowing journey. At the top, Jack sprinted towards the swing, climbing in with a giggle. The sound sliced through the air like a summer song. Rachel chuckled, her heart swelling as she pushed him gently. With each swing, the past felt more like a distant nightmare, moving further away. "You know what?" she said, shading her eyes with a hand. "We can finally be free, just you and me." With each backward motion of the swing, the sun illuminated the innocence they had fought so hard to protect. "I want to play, Mom! Higher!" Jack laughed, his spirit unbroken. The laughter echoed around them, mingling with the sound of the wind through trees, the joy chasing away every lingering shadow. Rachel realized they weren't just surviving now, they were living, rediscovering the beauty of their bond after the fear. Maybe life could be bright again, maybe even richer, full of hope where darkness once lurked. As the swing slowed, Rachel pulled Jack into her arms. Tears streamed down her face as she held him tight, feeling the warmth of the sun mixing with the pulse of life that surrounded them. "Mom, let's never go back," Jack squealed, a grin stretching across his face. "Never," she promised, her voice powerful with conviction. They stood together on top of the hill, their future stretching out before them like an open field. In that moment, they were free. No shadows, no demons. They had faced the darkest fears, emerged from the depths, and vowed to never return again. As they gazed out into the horizon, an ancient oak stood tall in the distance, whispering secrets of time and perseverance.
It felt like a marker of their journey, a reminder that even through darkness there would always be light. Together, they could embrace whatever came next, their spirits entwined, ready to face the world anew. Rachel breathed in deep, the air filling her lungs with promise. "Let's go home, Jack." And as they descended from that hill, the brightness remaining steadfast against the shadows, Rachel knew they had finally left the darkness behind. Now, dear friends, if you've loved this heart-pounding journey, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Don't wait even one more second. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.